You're good.
Okay. I'd like to, okay, thanks. Appreciate it. I'd like to call the main meeting of Southern Tier Regional EMS Council to order. First order of business is going to be roll call.
Okay. Frank Brzezowski.
Here.
Brian Chapman. Joseph Clark. Jessica Conklin.
Here.
Mark Sikora.
Here.
Steve Kopp Jr.
Here.
Don Duvall.
Here.
Mel Horton. Colleen Hilbert.
Here.
Alan Ingalls. Dr. Kellogg.
Here.
Henry Jerzak.
Here.
Bill Kennedy.
Here.
Rick Kimball.
Here.
Dean Pence, I'm the alternate tonight. Al Lewis.
Here.
Tim Marshall. Devin McGinnis.
Here.
Dan Miller. Kelly Miller. Jim Page. Lee Peterson. Dave Repsher.
Here.
Jeff Sweet. Terry Simons. Marianne Teeter. Mike Bunbeveren.
Here.
We just have a quorum.
Perfect. Nobody moved.
No one can leave.
All right, correspondence. I have a letter from the Department of Health dated April 11th. Please be advised that as a result of an investigation conducted by the Department of Health, the following individual's New York State certification has been revoked effective April 2nd, 2019, for violations of 10 New York Code of Rules and Regulations, Part 816A4. Jose Rivera from the Bronx, EMT number 394927. And I'm going to forward that to Dr. Kellogg, so we'll file it with the REMAC. Also, for announcements, for those of you who don't realize the significance of this week, it is National Nurses Week, which comes before EMS Week, but I just wanted to take a minute and recognize the registered nurses that are seated members of our council, Marianne Teeter, Terry Simons, and Kelly Miller.
Yeah.
Hopefully not missed anyone. But I'd like the record to reflect a thank you for their service and for their support of our mission of EMS here in the region. Announcements. Obviously, next week is EMS week, and as a reminder, the EMS Memorial Dedication Ceremony, the Plaza in Albany, is
Tuesday, May 21st. I think it's 10 a.m.
Yesterday at the SEMSCO meeting. There was a reminder put out for the dedication ceremony. They said that this is the first year of dedications where all of the new providers going up on the memorial have died as a result of 9/11 injuries or 9/11 illnesses. So all of the providers going up are affected by 9/11. If you'd like, or anyone you know would like to take a piece of apparatus, they ask that you call the Bureau office, Detective Valerie Oska, and she'll make arrangements for parking if anybody'd like to go. Approval of previous minutes. You all should have gotten a copy of the March minutes.
Motion to approve.
Okay. Seconded by Mr. Van Beveren. Any discussion, any corrections, any additions? Seeing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Systems Committee.
Systems Committee did not have a meeting, but I do have some items that I'd like to bring forward that we could vote on at the council. First thing is a PAD application from the Steuben ARC. It's 16 AEDs with 325 trained providers across Steuben County. Their application is complete, and they do have a collaborative agreement signed with the physician, and the physician is based out of Grand Island, New York. So I'd like to make a motion that we
Forward it to the
we
state.
forward it to the state. So
Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
The next is a BLS FR agency update form that we received from the City of Elmira Fire Department. Again, this is just that we received it and forwarded it on to the state again. I reviewed it. Everything is complete. They have, as well as the application update, they have a list of all their providers with all the required information present. They have their notice of intent to provide PAD update in there, signed as well by Dr. Emmerman. And they have their medical director verification as well, signed by Dr. Emmerman. And they do the PAD, albuterol, and naloxone. I'll make a motion that we acknowledge that this has been received and forwarded on to the state.
Seconded by Mr. Truesdale. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions?
Okay, the third one is the BLSFR agency update from the City of Corning Fire Department. The form is filled out. I do have a roster of all their providers that is complete. Their medical director verification, signed by Dr. Rickman, or no, excuse me, Dr. Morrow. They do defibrillation, naloxone, and I have their PAD update form as well. Everything is signed and in good order. So I'll make a motion that we acknowledge receipt of this and forward this on to the state.
Second.
Okay. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions?
Okay, and the last one is an application for EMS agency to use EPCR, and this is for the town of Cohocton ambulance. EMS Charts is their software product. Apparently they've been using EMS Charts for quite a while and have never submitted this form, but somehow that they were found that they didn't have the form, so that they met the obligations and filled it out. And again, this is just a receipt. The approval actually comes from the program agency, but it does require that we acknowledge receipt of this and send it off to the program agency to be forwarded off to the state.
Endorse is the word they use.
Yeah,
Endorse.
It's gonna be endorsed. recommended.
So,
I think I have to sign the bottom of the paperwork somewhere, right? We changed that form?
yeah, I saw the signs, and the only place I see, the only place that signatures are required is the regional endorsement, which is the program agency. It says program agency official,
Okay,
and then the New York State Department of Health, PNS.
fair enough.
So, endorsement, I make a motion that we endorse town of Cohocton for use of EMS charts as their EPCR.
Henry seconded that already.
Can you stipulate version, the transition version 3 as well?
It says that they are on version 3. Do I know that they're on version 3? I do not know, but they state that they are.
Right, but you want to stipulate that you're also endorsing them to go to version 3. They were submitting, they're locked in at 2, which is where they
Okay.
got caught.
So yes, so we'll endorse them to, I'll amend my, conclude that we endorse them to move to version 3. The
Anything?
motion and second.
Oh, yeah. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Call for systems committee until the next meeting.
Just as a heads up, I found out in Albany this week that we'll probably be seeing in the very near future another expansion of territory along the Steuben-Allegheny County line.
Who would that be?
Alfred Ambulance.
Okay.
They cover a portion of the town of Hartsville. They've covered it ever since before I was in
And
college.
they just never had a ceiling for it.
And if you ever went from Canasteel to Hartsville, there's a reason why Canasteel isn't covered.
When it comes, we will act.
So,
And I just do want to say over the summer that I'm going to be collecting all the mutual aid agreements within the region for review and approval.
good. That was mentioned as well.
Yes, I figured it would be a good summer project. So.
Anybody have anything else for Systems Committee? Okay. Do you want to do Stream Act first? And then
I
Stream
would
Act
be
and Systems?
delighted to do Stream Act first.
Okay, we're gonna drift out of order, we're gonna do Stream Act first.
We had a very heated and long Stream Act meeting last week where we discussed diversion in the region. As I'm sure many of you are aware, several of the hospitals in our region have been using diversion somewhat liberally in the recent past, and that is not okay with the state. So we had a meeting where we tried to get hospital stakeholders and EMS stakeholders together to discuss. And the short of it is we are suspending our regional diversion policy effective immediately. I have a signed letter that is going to go out today to all of the hospitals and agencies in the region. Effective immediately, Stream Act Policy 0602, Emergency Department Diversion is suspended. Per guidance from the New York State Department of Health, an emergency department is only able to be closed or on diversion under the most extreme of circumstances, natural disasters, terrorist incidents, etc., that make it impossible for the ED to provide care to patients. ED overcrowding is not a valid reason to divert ambulances. The Stream Act is currently working on creating a new policy that will meet with the requirements of the DOH, and that policy will be distributed when complete. In the event an ED suffers a catastrophic failure and needs to close, a hospital must inform the following: Chemung, Schuyler, and Steuben County, Bradford PA 911 centers, EMS agencies that routinely transport patients to the hospital, with a note that a closed ED is unable to care for walk-in patients and may need to arrange with an EMS agency to be prepared to transfer patients out of the facility, to notify the Strems Council, MSTAR, and the New York State Department of Health. There will be contact lists attached for all of these entities. In the unusual event that a hospital is unable to provide a specialty service it routinely provides, CT scanner broken, so unable to care for strokes, cardiac catheterization lab without power, so unable to perform PCI and STEMI, etc., notification should be provided to the same entities. That is the current state of affairs here, and hopefully by the next Stream Act meeting we will have a new policy we'll be able to roll out. I will do my best to make sure that all of you have a chance to give feedback on it before it is voted on by the Stream Act. I'd be happy to take any questions on that.
Your list of contacts, does that include Tioga, PA?
It does not.
Tioga County. Yeah.
It does not. Should it?
Yeah, it should, yes.
Okay.
You said both Tioga, New York and Pennsylvania?
I don't think Tioga, New York would be that big an issue, but Tioga County, Pennsylvania, for sure.
Okay.
Feel like ambulances
We go
from
around.
Allison,
Yeah. They come to Arnett or Corning.
What precipitated this? I'm just curious, I don't know why.
We were one of the few areas in the state that was still using diversion as something that hospitals could do when they were really busy.
Okay.
And that is not what the state wants done. and not consistent with best practices in EMS.
So the state recently became aware of this?
The state recently became aware of it because of an incident where both Corning and Arnott were on diversion at the same time. And several other related incidents. Other questions about this?
And the answer is yes.
Frank, most of the discussion at the diversion meeting centered around the Guthrie and Arnott systems. Based on Dr. Kellogg's description here, is there anything you need to fit your end of the region?
Not really.
What's your closest alternate hospital, Frank? Would it be Noyes or would it be IRA?
Noise and Jones.
Jones? Okay.
Yep. And the only problems we've ever had is CT scanner went down, and that's usually one or the other communicates. It's usually Noise or St. James, and then and that's only if we know a suspected stroke or something like that. But that's, most of the time that's happened, they've been up and running within 5 to 6 hours as soon as they get a tech right out there. But they always have informed us very, very few times.
Now, I should mention that we don't have any statutory authority over Robert Packer Hospital. They, being in a different state, are free to do whatever they want, but we ask them nicely to comply with our policies.
And they said?
No comment.
They were strangely quiet.
They were.
I've not felt outnumbered and intimidated in a very long time, but I was that day. There were a lot of hospital administrators in the room. A lot of them.
I do have to say, Lisa LaRock from Robert Packer was quite adamant about they don't go on diversion a lot at Robert Packer. I don't know how accurate that is.
I don't know for sure.
But, I mean, it seemed to me, at least from her perspective, is that Robert Packer agreed with that.
I'm hopeful.
The problem that we had, that we tried to articulate to the hospital administrators, was the fact that they kept coming back to the point that they're short-staffed, and when things get busy, it's, in their opinion, just not safe to take another patient. And I finally asked, what would you like us to do with them if nobody will take them? And that's where it kind of ended. And I want to thank, actually, Dr. Young did a lot of work on behalf of EMS, as with his role with the State Department of Health. So we're hopeful, very hopeful.
That's the most important part of the StreamAct meeting. Now, we did approve our bylaws that I think I talked to you guys about at our last meeting. So we're good on that for another 2-year cycle. And that's pretty much it for StreamAct.
Okay. Yeah, I did ask Dr. Kellogg to take back, or at least to look at the article in their bylaws on quorums, based on the discussions from Sunsco yesterday, but I believe we can move on everything else. So, motion to approve the bylaws. Does that come as a motion for you, Dr. Kellogg?
I suppose it does come as a motion for me. I would like to bring forward the motion that we approve our bylaws.
Second.
Thank you.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Hooray!
On to, do you want to do CMAC next?
Sure. I'll keep talking. CMAC, this was a very exciting CMAC. I learned more about parliamentary procedure than I ever wanted to know. The most important things to take away from CMAC, number one, the state has settled on the statewide quality metrics that they want to look at. and they mesh pretty well with the ones that we want to look at as a region. So those are making sure that chest pain patients get a 12-lead done, out-of-hospital cardiac arrests and return of spontaneous circulation, opioid overdoses who refuse transport, making sure that trauma patients are triaged to the correct destinations, percent of intubated patients who are confirmed with end-tidal CO2, documentation of a point-of-care glucose for suspected CVAs, and making sure that CVAs are triaged, or suspected CVAs are triaged to the appropriate destination. They are going to be rolling forward with those in the coming months, so my hope is that by the time they are ready to go, we have kind of reformed and reinvigorated our QI committee here, so we're ready to roll as well. The other big piece of contention was there was a suggestion made that potentially the AEMT curriculum in New York State should move to mirror the national standards curriculum for AEMT, which would mean a few differences, primarily AEMT being able to draw blood, intubate, and perform direct laryngoscopy. There was a lot of spirited debate about this, and then they punted it to the next meeting. So that may happen in the future, it may not.
The big issue with that, I'm sorry.
Nope.
The big issue with that is they're looking at the failure rate for the I'll be an optimist. They're looking at the pass rate for AEMT programs statewide. And what they're finding is New York State did what it does best when they adopted the national scope of practice model. They looked at a standard AEMT and said, you know, we can make it better. And New York added some things to the AEMT scope of practice in New York. The problem is there's not a textbook available that matches, and what's happening is a lot of course sponsors are using paramedic texts. And they feel that that's part of the reason that test scores are not what they'd hoped they would be. So I think the hope was from Dr. McAvoy and Training and Ed Committee was to do what we should have done, just adopt the national standard scope of practice model and use that. And eventually the doctors did what the doctors do best, and they said, that's reasonable, let's do that. But let's add a piece in there so we can add stuff to it later on when we want to. And that's where the discussion kind of tabled.
The other piece is that while there are the national scope of practice document came out, they have not yet produced the curriculum that goes along with the national scope of practice model. So we're not really sure what we'd be agreeing to if we went that route. I don't know much more beyond that.
BLS protocols. Statewide BLS protocols have been approved at the CMAC level, and that was done at the last meeting. They moved to the commissioner for his approval, and once they receive the commissioner's approval, they hope to be rolling those out by June, I think you said? Is that?
Yes.
I think he's telling me yes. So the BLS protocol updates are coming soon. And CMAC did approve a change in language in the collaborative protocols across the board to allow for patient transport to other than Article 28 facilities. The rationale for doing that was the new Medicare T3 billing model, where patients can be triaged and transported to alternative destinations. And CMAC was proactive in changing every place in the collaborative protocols where it said the patient would be transported to a hospital to change it to say the patient would be transported to the appropriate destination for the condition. So, kind of working on that as well, which is good. Sorry about that.
No, please. You took better notes than I did.
Is burned permanently in the brain. Oh, yeah, it doesn't, hugely affect this region, but there was quite a bit of discussion on the CC to paramedic bridge program. And actually, that program was developed and implemented by Northwell Health down on the island. It's largely an online program where students do most of their didactic work online and then do clinical portions in their psychomotor skills testing in their local areas with paramedic program instructors. They said they started with 102 and they still have 98 in the program. And as they look at FISDAP scores and progress, the CC Bridge students seem to be doing as well as any of the paramedic students that we compare against. So they're very hopeful and they're planning on starting the next class. They're taking applications now in anticipation of starting the next class in June. So if anybody is aware of any critical care techs still active that want to take advantage of the bridge, now's the time to jump in. And they say it's every bit as difficult as a paramedic program. Any other questions for CMAC? Okay. SEMSCO met also yesterday afternoon. Rehashed a fair number of the same things that were discussed at CMAC the day before, including the legal discussion about whether a motion is tabled or postponed and what the difference between those two is, and what constitutes a quorum under state law. Beyond that, I mentioned the BLS protocols and how soon they'll be coming. Also, Gene Taylor's been promoted to Deputy Director for Education within the Department of Health. Gene is the lady that core sponsors and CICs talk to with any issues regarding classes and testing and admissions tickets and stuff. So she'd worked there for quite a number of years and steps into that role. That being said, the new CME program manual that was promised to be out last year at Vital Signs. Remember that one they were going to roll out during Vital Signs? That is, we're told, 95% complete. And once it's completed, it goes to the commissioner for approval. And from the commissioner, it has to go to another department of legal something, another bureau someplace within state government. And Ryan Greenberg said they estimated usually it takes 4 to 12 months to turn something around for that process. So sometime in the next 4 to 12 months, you'll see the new CME program administration manual, and along with the new hours breakdown for EMT, AEMT, and paramedic levels of CME. So that is also on its way. For people that are doing CME research right now, the department is looking at ways to make everything more user-friendly. And we were told that within the next couple of weeks, providers will be able to submit their CME recertifications online. And the anticipated end game with that is within the next few months, online will be the only way the state will accept the CME recert applications. No longer will you have to mail and return receipt and go through all of that. Yeah, that's a great thing.
How are they going to notify or confirm receipt?
You'll get it. He said you'll get a receipt confirmation when you submit. So that'll be your proof that it's delivered, and that'll be, you know, if you happen to be one of those people that waited till the last minute, that'll be your as good as a postmark. The most exciting part that they talked about was the fact that Mr. Greenberg said on his listening tour he looked for things that would help providers across New York State, And one of the big things that came up was a learning management system. So, they looked within the Department of Health budget to see if they could find, if that was something that was doable. And they found that it is in fact doable, and they're moving in that direction. Sometime within the next year or so, they hope to have in place a statewide LMS that's available for regional councils. You'll be able to do all the things that we've been discussing for the last couple of years. So, cautiously optimistic. CLN actions, interestingly, there were 3 on the table. One dealt with Orleans County, which is just to the west of Monroe County. ALJ, during the course of an appeal, recommended that the state council uphold, that wasn't Monroe Livingston's action, that was Big Lakes?
That's Monroe. No,
That's
no,
Big Lakes.
it's
It
Monroe.
was Big,
Yeah,
it was
Big
Big
Lakes.
Lakes.
Is it Big Lake?
Yeah.
Big Lakes.
Half of Ontario Lake is Orleans County,
Yeah.
not half of it.
So, there was very heated discussion at the Semco meeting regarding the ALJ's recommendation. And ultimately, the council voted to side with the Remsco and award the CON to COVA for all of Orleans County. But strangely, down on Long Island, Northwell had applied for both Suffolk and Nassau
Not
counties.
Northwell, North Shore.
North Shore.
North Shore Ambulance and Oxygen.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's not Northwell.
That's not North Shore, okay, sorry about that.
That's all right.
So North Shore applied for all of Nassau and all of Suffolk. They wound up getting turned down for Suffolk County, but they were awarded Nassau County. Again, I don't expect that that's the last to be heard from them.
No. Actually, Suffolk was tabled, that will come up with systems again in September. Nassau
Thank you.
was upheld by the council.
And Al, forgive me, I was getting a little tired by that
I
point.
don't see
but,
you.
legislation, you brought up a couple pieces of legislation that,
Yeah.
were you mentioned.
There's a couple things. There's a community paramedicine program that's out there that's on in a bill, but we had voted to support it. And there's another one about sharing, EMS people sharing individuals' personal data. The legislation that we supported would prohibit EMS providers from sharing personal data unless the patient released it to them. And 4 release, and the last one.
That was a bill on direct pay. if I remember.
Direct pay was the last one, and direct pay is going to the insurance committee by Senator Breslin Monday morning. That's the first time it's getting movement.
What's the support? Is there a co-sponsor?
Oh yeah, it's same as in the Senate and the Assembly, and this is one we have been pushing for 5 years.
Right.
I'm excited that it's going to the Senate insurance, that's where it either will get held up or move forward. And the Assembly is, we're hearing, we've had a lot of meetings about this this year, and we're hearing that the Assembly is ready to move forward if they can get by the insurance industry. They're the ones that are kicking back at it. That bill is also in another 209B bill, which you probably should know that there is a chance that 209B will change this year. There's a better chance for us to lose that this year than we've ever experienced. Stay tuned.
Thank you. Anything else that you guys that were sent to go? You got pretty well covered. Any questions?
I guess I got a question, I don't know if it's a great spot or not. But talking to some other people at the meeting that more sitting at the big table, the whole thing with North Shore was based around a agency that sets up transports for non-emergent transports, doctor's offices, medical business files and stuff like that.
Medicaid patients only.
Yeah.
Right.
My concern would be if they don't have the calls answered and that medical service can go outside the region or outside that coverage area and bid that at a lower price. And I'm gonna say, so ambulance company A says, we charge $250. That's our going rate. But they can go, 2 towns over and get this ambulance to do it for $150. So they start giving them their business, and now all of a sudden they come in and say, hey, look, we've done these 200 calls in the last year that went unanswered, we want to see one. My concern is, if that's gonna happen throughout the state, there's gonna be areas without service, because they're gonna close their doors.
That was my point.
So what you're saying is they're price shopping, and because they're not getting what
Right.
they can, they can go outside the CON.
Is that being looked at the state level and being prevented? Because you don't want, eventually you're gonna lose services.
Right, and I think that's why that's why REMSCOs are tasked with looking and making a determination of need as they put out recommendations for operating authority. But I think, and I've said since the whole Medicaid answering system contract kicked in, that it seems like, and I'm gonna put the DOH rep on the spot here, because it seems like different sections, different parts of the Department of Health are kind of in direct conflict with each other, because I know I've dealt with Medicaid answering service, and they don't take CONs into consideration when they look for ambulances or wheelchair vans or ambulances to do transports. Yet, if an ambulance chooses to work outside of territory that has an operating authority for, technically they're not supposed to be able to bill Medicaid in the first place. And that's why there's all this recent action on clarifying CONs, and that's why Whitesville was pushed into the position they were, or Independence was pushed into the position that they were, because they were billing for an area that they didn't have legal authority to operate in. Yet, through these MAS contracts, all of that seems to kind of go out the window, and I'm not sure who the burden for that falls on, or if anybody's done the homework on that to see if that's happening.
Statute says that Logisticare and medical answering service are supposed to use the CON holders first. That was what was happening in Nassau and Suffolk County, and North Shore Ambulance was being used, we feel, favored and used, and that's what I said in my statement. And we had proof that they didn't call all the CON holders for all those calls. Thus building the numbers for North Shore Ambulance to justify them to have a CON. That was my argument. My argument also said that if we allow this one to happen, MAS or Logisticare, they're only in Long Island, but a similar type contracted agency with Medicaid could manipulate numbers. I'm not saying they all do, but I'm saying this one did. And they never proved that they called every one of the ambulance services that have a CON before they went to North Shore. That was my point of contention, but didn't seem to get any traction with some of the numbers and stuff.
And part of the concern with that is they did 2 different counties, 2 different regions, and they come up with 2 different answers. One says yes, one says no.
That's correct.
And then you go to state and they say, oh yeah, we're gonna agree with this one and agree with this one, so yes and no. I guess my concern is 10 years from now, are you gonna have a job? Am I gonna have a job? Because somebody from Rochester region come down and took And once you get a CON, it doesn't limit just to non-emergency transport. You can start coming and running 911 calls, all that stuff.
Right.
You know, is there something we can do, you know, maybe send a letter to somebody or say, hey, look, this is on the radar, we're concerned, not only for the region it's happening in, but we wanna make sure we protect our own.
I think that our place as a regional council, rightfully is not necessarily to protect our own, but to protect our system as a whole. And I think to get to either one of those, we need to do the same things. We need to be proper stewards of the process. And as much as I dislike CONs a lot of the time, it certainly seems in some cases they are a necessary thing. If regions are tasked, each REMSCO is tasked with making that determination of need in their own area. And then, of course, there's the appeals process. But so, in effect, we are the protectors of our own systems, and by extension, protectors of jobs for those people who depend on them. But I think as a council, we need to be always looking at the system as a whole. And one could make the case that in a lot of cases, it certainly means that you're very judicious about how you hand out those certificates of need.
But,
It's not the case.
yeah, my feeling is it doesn't matter, because it's gonna get appealed, and it's gonna go to the aggregate, whatever, council, and they're gonna say, oh, no, do it this way, do it that way. And we can do our best here to say this is not necessary, but if they go up there and present a better case than we do, I mean, look at O.J. Simpson. Whoever's got the most money, whoever does the better job wins the case. I mean, everybody knows that that's a fact.
Your thoughts, Don?
Did you have a question?
I was wondering what you were thinking.
No, I mean, the reality is as Al said, I mean, Logistic Care and MAS are contractors of the Medicaid, service. So, the department's position is that an operator with operating authority on their certificate, has precedence for provision of care. If there is no operator available, and that is I guess, definable situation, that isn't clearly defined, then there would be an opportunity to potentially look at others. But that should, just like the mutual aid process that we utilize in 1206, it should be the seldom and not the regular occurrence. So the department's position is you need to have an operating certificate to operate. You need to have the territory to operate as a primary responder, whether it be emergent or non-emergent care.
Is there an auditing system in place that is supposed to safeguard against potential bid rigging, if you will?
Well, my understanding is there is a QA/QI process relative to MAS. I'm not really sure how that system works. That's not in our wheelhouse.
I understand that every 30 days, the vendor has to submit records to MAS showing that they use the appropriate people. That's my understanding. Trust me, there's a lot to this, and the more I delve into it, the more stuff that I got from Dana on these records, copious amounts of stuff.
If I was to provide any level of recommendation on the council's behalf, I would tell you that, A, if you feel that someone is operating outside of their territory, to file a complaint with the Department of Health utilizing the EMS complaint form. B, if you are addressing a CON action, the whole purpose of the CON action is for you to legitimately put discussion on the matter and utilize the process as it's designed. So if there is no discussion, then there's limited information on the record.
Fair enough. Any other questions? Training and education.
Training did not meet order. A couple of notes. American Heart Stroke Conference, Monday, May 13th. Must be registered for that. Also, there is a CLI class being held May 14th, 16th, 21st, and 23rd, 6 to 10 p.m. Must also register ahead for that, so they've got a head count so they know how many they're expecting. Is there anything else, Mike, that from MSTAR that?
Greetings. Are we done yet?
No.
Oh, okay, good.
Motion to adjourn.
Wanna wait? Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
And that's something New York and
Yeah, yeah.
farther that we.
We're still waiting for the feedback from them. Our side is done.
Anything else for training and education? Okay. Public information. Did Jeff have anything else that I missed? Okay. Jeff Sweet couldn't be here tonight, but he did send along a piece of information that I wanted to make sure was included in the record for tonight's meeting. You'll recall last year one of our goals was to begin to get back to nominations for regional awards, and actually nominations to push forward to the state for providers in our region. Only received 2 applications for nomination to New York State Awards this year. Ironically, they were both for the same person. We opted to nominate this gentleman for Commissioner's Award of Commissioner of Health's Award of Excellence. As we were discussing it and kicking the regional awards around, those single heroic acts only come along once in a while. Most of the time we all, as providers, kind of live our lives day to day. But I happened to be down in Nikki's office taking care of some paperwork and some other issues. And I had a gentleman wander through in a nice, crisp, new Irway EMT uniform. And he stopped for a minute and said, 20 years ago, I probably never would have thought I'd be here. But he described an event that changed his mind, and now he's working on the front lines as a BLS provider. I'd like to, if I may, just kind of read this. This writer's background began in 1985 with a local volunteer fire department. I was at that time only interested in being a firefighter, and EMS was nothing more than an afterthought in those days. I've been in emergency services for over 30 years, and I am now the Director of Fire and Emergency Management for Chemung County, New York. My thoughts about EMS changed for me when my father was diagnosed in 2018 with terminal lung cancer. My father was at home under hospice care and had an acute respiratory episode. Paramedic Moritz of Irway Ambulance was sent to his home. Even though there was absolutely nothing Moritz could do to improve my father's eventual outcome, he was a true inspiration for me. John Moritz's professionalism and, more importantly, his compassion displayed while assisting my father during that episode was extraordinary. His treatment of my father with heartfelt compassion and dignity will never be forgotten by this writer. And upon reflection, it was John Moritz that inspired me to become an EMT after all of these years as a firefighter in public service. I believe that John Moritz's dedication to his patients, the proficiency with which he demonstrates his skill set, and most importantly, his true compassion and dignity that is shown toward each and every patient is a credit to his service. I believe that within the EMS world in this day and age, being skills proficient is not nearly enough, but respect, dignity, and true compassion for your patient is what's most important. John Moretz is one such example. I therefore nominate John Moretz for consideration for the New York State Commissioner's Award of Excellence. And on behalf of the Public Information Committee, on behalf of Mark Sikora, and on behalf of the Regional EMS Council, I was proud to forward John Moretz's nomination to the state for their consideration for the Commissioner's Award of Excellence. I wish John could have been here tonight, but I've known him for probably close to 30 years. My first experience with John was when I was starting out in advanced life support. And sometimes it's those people that are just there day after day after day for that long career that really deserve a little recognition. So join me in wishing John good luck as the State Council Peer Committee sets about to make their final decisions. And hopefully, John will receive the award. Next year.
It's great we submitted someone. It's wonderful. Sounds like he's a great candidate.
I do appreciate it, and like I said, I look forward to seeing his name in the vital signs pre-course or pre-con catalog this year. So, and I want to thank Mark for sharing that story, because honestly, it hadn't occurred to me. Because sometimes you just see those guys that are there year after year after year. So, what a difference one provider can make. And that is it for public information. QI committee, Terry's not here tonight.
She did send her.
Okay. Right.
The QI committee met on the 24th of April at St. James. There were 8 EMS providers in attendance. Some of the things that they went over were the new fillable forms that we put online. As they started to put something in, it just repeated itself, so we are working on that now. Also, the forms that we had on there, they seem to be a little bit confusing, so we've cleared them up, so a new form will be going up. They discussed the web page, what is listed, how to get a hold of someone, when they might need something, etc. So she's going to be talking to Jeff about that. And it was also brought up as a suggestion to have recruitment page on the website, suggestions on upcoming courses, whom to contact to join any given agency. Also, possibly a Facebook page for the council. And dispatch through mutual aid usually tones out 2 to 4 departments, suggested to tone out the first department first, then tone out many other agencies. And maybe Frank can follow up a little more on that. He was at the meeting.
Okay. Questions on QI issues?
One of the things you brought up on a lot of the providers thought it'd be a good idea maybe to send a note out on the line that when we were talking about the webpage and stuff, to get each of the providers to either list, because again, captains change, EMS directors change, chiefs change, most departments have a, email for the department. If we could get them on that webpage, so if there is a function and you wanna share, I'll just use Cohocton's fall foliage, and they wanna have other vendors there or whatever, and a way of getting a message out to all the agencies that, hey, this is this weekend, would you like to come, bring recruitment, or if there's an education piece, they're getting that education message out to everybody, because a lot of times the emails, again, if somebody didn't keep their email address up because captain changed or something like that, this would be a way of making sure that that is identifiable, so that was a suggestion that was brought up in that meeting also.
Anything else? I should add, I mentioned earlier, it was Nurses Week, and somewhere along the line today, I heard or read that Terry Simons was recently recognized, or today recognized, as Registered Nurse of the Year at St. James. So, our congratulations to Terry. Finance Committee.
Jimmy couldn't be here tonight, and the finance committee didn't meet, but he has some notes. There is a new person that is doing the contracts. Her name's Lynn Ferrugia, and there are some different things about the budget. There were 2 meetings. The first meeting was for all program agencies and councils, and then the second one was a one-on-one. So some of the things that we can't do any longer with the budget is we can no longer purchase refreshments. So tonight's refreshments are on behalf of Irway Ambulance. You can no longer purchase plaques because they're considered gifts. However, we can pay all council members mileage for traveling to the meetings. We need to put in real numbers, not round numbers, not guessing at putting money in here or there. If you need to adjust an amount, you have to send in a budget modification and get approval for it. And you need to have an absolute reason for the $25,000. However, they did like the community EMS service, I think we put in there, it was like 5,000. They really liked that.
Community education.
Community education, thank you. We can pay for travel. We can also send people to vital signs and other New York State EMS events. And that is about it. Jimmy had me send out the updated revised budget. If you didn't get it, let me know, I'll send it to you again. And the state seems happy thus far. That's about it. And
Motion in order
if
to
anything
approve.
else, you were there.
No, mostly in order to approve that, Mr. Chairman.
We have to reapprove the budget.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, we're gonna have to
Okay,
reapprove
I'll
the
make a
budget.
motion to approve this as written.
Second.
Good, motion's been made and seconded. Further discussion? Yes.
Just a side note, they revisited the awards thing, and now they're open to a reasonable plaque, as long as it's not perceived as marketing. And this year, they're going to allow you to revise your budget if you feel like you need to into the first quarter without a mod.
Amazing. We can send you on a trip, but we can't buy you cookies for it comes
Just to clarify that point, they're defaulting to federal guideline on that, is how they arrived at that.
Right. So, Jimmy and I had talked, I'm not sure if we discussed it with the whole finance committee, but when we looked at administrative policies a couple of years ago, we did, I think we did adopt a mileage policy. MSAR has a form that, I've been using for like the state council trips. I think what we'll do is we'll go ahead and activate that, or I'll consider a motion to, go ahead and reimburse council members for their actual mileage under the current policy and using the, prescribed forms that we know are good. It'll be for actual mileage, and, we've got some details to kind of work out the policy. I think that we will, require people to submit vouchers at least quarterly. That way there aren't vouchers hanging out there in the wind that, we're trying to chase down at the end of the fiscal year. So I guess I can make that motion actually. Or we've got a motion on the table already for the budget. Further discussion on the budget?
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah,
So you clean your mileage, does that come out of that $25,000 budget?
correct. Correct.
And Donna, if there's paperwork needs to be done with that, why not have the form for the paperwork and the rules that apply to it, both on the website?
We can do that.
They'll be on the website under the members only page, and then you'll be able to send it electronically.
What, already done or already planned?
It's planned, it's just not there yet.
Further discussion? Sucks to drive the chief's car, doesn't it?
You know, we were just debating where we're gonna stop with that mileage to eat dinner on the way. So, mileage.
Yeah, that was my question, was this, that we were talking about, yeah, would they cover meals and mileage?
I asked that question.
If you go to Bible Science, you can.
But on a short trip within a region, the answer was no.
Because my thought was, we'll just all get billed for our meal that we have here.
Yeah.
Just submit it as part of our claim.
Oh, trust me, we thought about those things, but this new lady at the state seems to be a little bit smarter than the rest of us.
What are we supposed to use as the starting location for the mileage? Our home address or?
Wherever you come from, if it's homework or,
Okay, so every time they could just change, okay.
Correct. Unless you leave work and go home and start from there. But yeah, that's the important thing to remember, guys. We gotta be honest about the mileage. And I know when I do vouchers for work or here or anything else, I do them by Google Maps. Same way I do ambulance trips. So back to the budget. Any other questions on the budget or the new rules? All right, all those in favor of adopting the new budget?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. So, again, I'd make a motion that the council move forward with activating our mileage reimbursement policy, and make sure that documentation is compliant with the state's requirements. Council members, after tonight, will be able to claim mileage for official council business.
Second motion.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Perfect. Don't really have anything from executive committee. We discussed all the budgeting stuff. Any old business from council?
I just want to remind you, I had a couple of folks come up to me while I'm at work and mention cases that they thought might have been times when rapid sequence intubation might have been a useful tool to have. Previously, the Stream Act had decided that there were just not enough cases to make that into a regional policy. But please, if you do have cases, get them to me or get them to someone who can get them to me so that the Stream Act can review them. If we see a preponderance of cases saying that that's would be helpful, then we'll revisit that policy.
The question was asked earlier this week regarding the council's evaluation of program agency suggestions prior to the upcoming contract cycle. That's a task that we set to the finance committee. So just put that up as a reminder to finance committee that we'll be looking for an interim report.
Were any suggestions submitted by yourself or any of the chairs of this group?
Yes, I know I submitted the list,
Maybe
I see
some-
that on the vote.
and Rick submitted.
Maybe if they could be given to Jim and he could share with the finance committee, we could start some action.
I submitted mine directly to Jim.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where mine went.
Okay.
too. Any other old business? Any new business? No?
Motion to adjourn?
Oh, hold on.
Forget the guy in the back.
Yep, the most important man in the room had his hand.
Far from important, but just a couple updates on the bills we have. You mentioned the BLS protocols. Just a reminder, the REMSCOs are responsible for approving those protocols at the local level. So it goes through the Stream Act and then through the REMSCO, and that needs to be done by August 1st. The plan across the state is that it will be implemented August 1st. So they have been approved by the commissioner. They should be coming up online shortly. Exam tickets, if you have people that are registered in classes, they should be receiving their exam tickets by email to the applicant, just so that you're aware. We are attempting to move everything to electronic, so not only is EMS verifications, but reciprocity, and as you mentioned previously, the CME research and so forth. So the goal is to move everything toward an electronic or digital format. Distance learning is a big topic within the department in an attempt to try to provide more opportunities for learning across the state. So we are beginning to entertain waivers on a case-by-case basis that would come from course sponsors who could demonstrate a lack of available CLIs or develop a plan to develop additional CLIs in their areas. So if you are having some struggles, please get with our education bureau, which is short-staffed currently as well. So Liz Donnelly is out on medical leave currently, and unfortunately we just lost Teresa Allen, who was one of our reciprocity folks and so forth. EMS on tour. So EMS week is coming up, as you know. EMS on tour is a statewide initiative to be held on Sunday, May 19th, excuse me. And what we're asking is for as many EMS agencies as possible to get out in their community and show themselves off to their community and try to provide some community education. If you're familiar with the rest of the challenges for EMS week, Monday's theme is education, Tuesday is safety, as well as the EMS Memorial. Wednesday is EMS for Children Day, Thursday is Save a Life Day, which also coincides with Stop the Bleed Day, and Friday is EMS Recognition Day. So there's the program agency's got a pretty lengthy email from another program agency, quite frankly, to your west, and there should be some additional state stuff come out. I saw an email today just kind of requesting from program agencies info if there's anybody that or any agencies that they know of that are going to be out and about doing stuff as we are trying to get some PR for that. Vital signs, well, I foot stomped the memorial. If you have the opportunity, please come and join us for the memorial on May 21st. Vital Signs is coming up in October, and we encourage everyone to attend. It should be a fresh situation this year. Without diving too deep, we've added some critical care pre-conference stuff, so if you're interested in taking any of the critical care exams, we will have a critical care pre-conference 2-day review class on Thursday, Friday, and then we're adding critical care transport track to Saturday and Sunday. So in addition to the BLS, ALS, educational, and administrative, now we're going to add a critical care track as well. As you guys are doing your renewals, I would ask that you review the territory that is on your operating certificate. So your operating certificate, which is supposed to be conspicuously posted, and you review, please take a look at that. When you get a packet, you should be getting 2 packets in the mail. One comes from central office about 90 days out, another comes from our Buffalo regional office about 60 days out. And on the 206 form is exactly what it shows in our system as your territory. If that does not match, I encourage you to please reach out and let's have that conversation in advance to you submitting the paperwork. And we will work on trying to fix if there is an issue. I will tell you that we always revert back to your original ambulance service registration. Al probably remembers what those were from back when. And then we look for any cases and such after that. And then thanks for Rick for foot stomping the mutual aid stuff. 1206, make sure that you guys are getting your 1206 stuff done. I am kind of going county by county and trying to make sure that we are in compliance. So if you guys already have stuff on, that's awesome. The councils have been tasked with that since the 90s of getting that accomplished. So that's really all I have on the Bureau's behalf. Unless anyone has any questions, comments, or concerns. And on behalf of the Bureau, in advance of EMS Week, thank you for all that you do for EMS in our great state.
Okay. I believe there was a motion on the table. Please eat up.
It's your last. That's right.
After they help with the cell.
No, it's just an old class. There's still a generator.
Absolutely, it's good to be safe. I was not to feel like it's the alternative.
That's what I was wondering. There's
Twice in a week. That's why I saw that.
Well, I think that monthly to the Office of Mental Health.
We're just getting the new lines.
I said I gave her a few months ago.
She sure did. Executive committee has not.
We're just doing us.
I'm doing one of my buckets. Not gonna happen this time, but well, he said that
And that's when public health comes to us about we give them this thing and say, we have a problem there. Yeah, well, what's the data? You know, we can't, there's nothing to show it. So we won't meet numerous times. We're going to try to do it today or something. So that's probably to say, if you're detailed out there's, I think you know, there.
There you go.
Same info.
He's not as complete.
I feel
You owe me a gallon of liquor.
But we got two critical bills, so they're gonna allow people to.
Speaking of that,
right?
Yeah, you missed it.
They're not.
the president. Yeah, there's red.
Lower grade.
It's red, I think.
They're gonna allow it.
It don't hurt.
Yeah, she had surgery, so she's out for already 6 weeks. Taylor is covering.
No, I don't think that's
Because they couldn't get an order for accommodate.
I wish I was more.
Yeah. Right. All right, yeah. So we will. Okay.
I'm not saying that to be polished.
All right, I got Travis. Hello, Billy, welcome home, buddy.
So anyway.
Suctioning and someone through.
What's going on?
But I hit my car.
That is good. I'm going to tell you, that is good. Oh, my power food is. Friends?
Bye.
See you later, Joe.
Nothing new. Same old, same old.
But it wasn't.
I got 2 hours. 2 hour ride home.
We're all set to go. Yeah, I see the email from Liz. I looked at that before I came on.
These so you can.
So you get worse, the word gets better.
Yeah.
Are you reading the others still?
All right, chief, you take care. If you need something, give me a call.
Who's up for it?
Thank you.
No, I heard no.
Yeah, I think his liver's quivering.
Yeah, it wouldn't be hard to.
I wasn't that bad.
Well, then he needs one then. A little,
I wasn't that bad.
Just create a form letter and then
But,
put it on.
I just got.
We'll have to go home.
Go down to the basement.
Yeah, good to see you. Good to see you, absolutely. Good job, thank you. You guys have a great night.
I talked to Tina, she'll send you that stuff tomorrow.
If she
At
can do
least
it.
that's what she indicated to me.
Okay. It's,
She's got a bunch of stuff going on, but.
Right.
it is a fairly, time sensitive topic in the morning, if at all
Yeah,
possible.
no,
Congratulations.
type up a form letter saying that we
Not me,
received it.
I'm just the messenger.
Yeah.
It's brought to the
So,
result.
thank you very much, I appreciate it. You guys have a great night.
Okay, now.
Thanks, see you later, John.
That was, is that
That's it,
everything?
that's exactly what I want. I'm just gonna go to my critical care guys and let them appropriate behavior protocols. They
Who
know
now?
suit their needs. And then I'll send it to the.
Okay.
And let them.
Deal with
And let them, get it, say, hey, it's good. So I can't imagine they're gonna ask for the same day, especially when it's an
You guys have guys who are currently certified critical care and stuff?
Oh, yeah.
You guys want to be going, just get more,
Well, we're hoping to add a couple of years.
try to help me out and I push for this critical care track. Of course, you know, it was, down the road, we're trying to have
Whatever you do, don't adopt.
Okay, because that was one of the ones we were looking at.
I live in Illinois.
Well, here's the problem, I can't qualify as no
Not talking about qualifications, we're talking about protocols.
You just use the protocols.
Just use your protocols, we're not, it's two different things. Protocols and process of qualification, those are different things.
What brought this up is like, we weren't allowing our guys to maintain protocol.
That's neither here nor there.
Because the last thing from the state was protocol.
Well, and I was like, you say something, so I asked a question. So, it's within the scope, just, like, well, it's on the state farm, it's on the state farm. I don't know, since I was, been around there, and, no, well, there was a, I go, there was a key. Technically, it's a state farm. The other side of it is there are multiple regions, and I go, well, those two, they have protocol, and in their protocol, so they're approved at the regional level. And I go, we have a policy that if they're approved, okay, they're only cross regional levels. And they can be adopted by another region. And I said, so, there you go.
Like you say, I ain't going by time this.
qualify.
Lose track of all this stuff now.
Significant They
She
don't.
wasn't. What they get underneath, so what they try to say is based on training, because of the authority.
Yeah.
Blame it as a scope.
But if you're reading,
Right.
and see, that's how, remember when I did the first one for. We created a formula.
That's how Western Regional Police is by drug, the Western Regional ones that I said.
Bye, you're
are by
welcome.
Drug classification,
Right.
and then they list some drugs of that classification as the common, but it says you can do that within the same class. Milligrams now says that as well. So if a drug isn't listed, as long as it falls within the class of all the ones listed, your ability.
Because what we found was with anticonvulsants.
Yeah, he's pretty high up because he came out of,
Or pharmaceutical rep that committed all the.
yeah.
And we figured when I drafted that first set, let's keep them to class.
What we've always said.
Well, I've got-
The hospitals is.
I've got him
Full
before
education
too.
on whatever med you
Because
want,
he did-
under the circumstances.
He was involved with like,
Do we need a trade for it? If they're not familiar with it and have not been trained on it.
Counterterrorism
You
or-
can send a patient with it, but you have to send it.
Counterterrorism
If you want to send it to the parent, if you want to paramedic, if you want to. Critical paramedic.
But it was,
Here's it, when you take a patient, here's.
I'm so glad.
That they're familiar. That they're familiar with the training.
And see, the issue is the whole second test, because where's their scope of practice on that kind of ambulance?
They give us.
It just,
See, and we've always told the hospitals that these people, if you're in the back of the ambulance, you're only there for
Different breed of
you're
ambulance,
only
different breed of
medication.
ambulance.
You're only
They don't get out much.
medication. Apparently, the medication that your
But
monitoring, that the paramedic is in charge of everything.
but it doesn't take away from the liability of the
Right.
EMS agency. It's a very, I know thought is an issue that basically, and like legal eagles going forward, and you get different evidence, education,
Nick, yeah, if I didn't.
So the bottom line is if,
I was glad,
the bottom line.
I don't know.
like I said, I that shit here, and
We were going to
I'm back on that, you know,
and so forth.
Mhm.
And, you know, so
That's
we
early.
started, even on the ground side, we started to employ nurses on the ground side.
Well,
yeah, it was starting to happen, you know. But now it is,
we went to our two local yards, and we will hire them on a per diem basis.
and,
Pay
but anyway,
the same as
I guess this happened after that, in the hospital, yeah, that.
to do these.
To be able to transfer the money and make up the
Yeah.
difference.
Good for him.
Yeah.
And it worked well, and told them, and he nurses first.
Like I said, I wasn't hiring that much. Happens, I didn't see video.
So there weren't a whole lot of nurses that wanted to do this. So that's when we started sending people to critical care. And then we started running into the other issues, here's this. Medic, that wasn't covered. That's the bare class, but the patient's on it. Well, it's not on it.
That should be.
See, that's where.
What
Well,
the-
Bob
Yeah.
does is
I mean, that's.
That's not my line terminology, either for the CCN or the class. I work very fast. You know, this drug is, these drugs, tell me what class this
Right.
drug is.
Okay, you can figure out.
If they answer, we get.
I don't know where it's ready, I mean, I don't see.
Hey, you probably didn't hear about
You know, and then the thing we get into, so they're gonna let one as well, okay, so now, one of our medical.
What's gonna happen there?
That's,
So this is one they can, so that they can question.
but that was the same policy that I did over university. When they were on my air around, you used to call for every single one of those types of transports. You know, and so you have to back up the crew. If you're shut down.
Because he said it. So, if that problem is,
No, that's gonna ask Lonnie and Tim, what about that?
Correct.
So, much more, here's an interesting point for you. Rick.
Okay, I gotta let you go, I gotta tell her, right, what we just did. Okay, take care.
Thank you,
sir. Thank you, thanks for everything you're doing.
No problem, thank you.
What's that?
We said
The
something.
education department says that Kingston Grassy, since they have.
The medical device.
Or medications, and children can't associate call. Severely limited students would hurt, order
Per child.
per child.
Probably first. Been in this afternoon.
The whole school system drives me nuts. My son has migraines. And, you know, how his migraines come on is a projectile thing. So he can feel them coming on in about 5 minutes before it starts pushing. So he's got an order for Zofran. He has to go to the nurse's office to get the Zofran. And he can't carry it with him. I mean, and he doesn't have enough time to get to the.
Yeah, I didn't get you.
I didn't hear about that. It's the school policy, the student policy. They have to go home.
I know.
Doesn't matter why they. They have to go.
Well, I'm riding with you.
All right.
Thinking of you,
I don't care if it's she's got it on her, you know, it's hers. Oh, it's crazy. That's for you.
CMAC directed,
Going to hazmat tomorrow?
their.
No, I would like to go, but
I wouldn't know if
Right,
something could come into law, I'd like to see it.
Oh.
Would you be so kind, sir?
She's
so, no.
Work this shit out.
Yeah.
I don't know, if there's a mass shooting.
I just never nowhere.
I like that. Not out.
Yeah.
It's not like we're doing it.
I've been bad. My
Or turning them the chicken box.
Yeah, see you later.
Okay, see you guys.
Yeah, later. See you guys. See ya.
All right.
But yeah.
Hey, Mark.
I've been tearing some stuff out.
I was gonna pack this up, I didn't know if this was off.
Yes.
Crap, that is not.
Not a council member.
I didn't want to touch something I wasn't supposed to.
No, that's all right. Good thing I can edit it.